battery is wearing out about the same sort of rate. It looks like the battery's about to die. Okay, well that's definitely a little bit different than the last time we went out. Wow, that really was not what I was expecting. For the last 4 years now, I've found myself frustratingly cornered. The extended life batteries for the Mini 2, 3 and 4 have all been sitting at around the same $149. No one but DJI seems to be allowed to make these batteries. I even heard people posting their YouTube videos in the past claiming things like, I bought a cheap aftermarket battery but it won't even let me turn my drone on, or another person saying my drone's turned on but it's giving me an error message saying I'm not even allowed to take off. Just recently I've finally seen the market flooding with cheaper aftermarket batteries for the Mini series for the first time. They're claiming to have the same flight time as DJI but at 2/3 the price. So let's do the test and find out. I've purchased both online, one directly from DJI for $149 and the other one, the cheapest one I could find on Amazon, that was selling for only $110 extended battery life. Are the cheaper aftermarket batteries really as good as DJI? Will they really last the same amount of time? Do they weigh the same amount? Or are they just cheaper because they're simply not as good? Let's find out. Okay, so as I launch my drone, I'm going to show you some random highlights of my test flights, and I'm going to remind you that there's a mountain of variables when you're doing a battery life test. If I didn't write this long list of all the variables that are important to do the same way each and every time I do a test flight, I'm sure I'd get lots of comments. It would be very easy to get false different results. Here's a quick list of some things I can think of that would greatly vary the battery life. Fast or slow charging your battery. Of course, it's better to charge your battery slowly than to have quick charge. I also made sure to charge my batteries in the exact same way at the same place each and every time. And after I charge the batteries, I would make sure to leave them for a full 24 hours before doing the next test flight. If you charge your batteries and go out and fly immediately, you won't get as much battery life, but realistically, you probably only need to leave them to settle for a couple of hours to get the full expectancy out of your charge. Next variable, I made sure that I went out early in the morning when it was most likely to be non-windy, and if there was any form of wind that I can spot, I simply wouldn't do the flight. Hot or cold days can have a big effect on how the battery performs. Flying the drone at different heights has a surprisingly big effect, because if you're down low, you won't get very good reception, so you'll have to do lots of turns and stuff, flying your drone unevenly. Then when you think I'll go up to a high height so that I can fly the drone in gigantic, perfectly equal, like 3 kilometer wide circles, and you think you've done it perfect. No, now you're in the problem that the higher you get, the more variable the winds can come and change directions randomly. A lot of people don't even know that you can have winds blowing in the opposite directions at the same time at different altitudes. There's plenty more I could talk about for hours, but that will do for now. Let's get into the results. So each morning I did the test when the wind is low. I flew these gigantic circles around myself. I made sure the height was the same way, the batteries were charged the same way, left to settle for the same amount of time. Anyways, there's lots more I could talk about for all the know-it-alls out there. I could give you lots of information. I did write down a long list before I took my drone out on the first flight, and I made sure to fly the drones in exactly the same way as much as possible. So let's get into the results right now. Okay, time for the results. Now, for those of you that are extremely impatient, I'm just going to jump straight to it without giving you the details and just say, they're exactly the same. I can't believe it. What makes sense is that DJI make the drone, of course, but for things like a car manufacturer, they don't necessarily make the windscreen wipers and they don't necessarily make the steering wheel. They just get another manufacturer to make the steering wheels all the time. In this case, DJI most likely just gets a person that makes batteries at their factory to make the batteries all the time to give the battery to DJI. And the people that are selling the aftermarket battery are getting the battery identically from the same people. So the aftermarket battery in all my tests, I'll say in short now, performed exactly the same way on average as the DJI battery. So if you want the quick short answer, save your time, save your money, just buy the aftermarket battery. Forget about DJI batteries, there's no difference. I'm 100% sure of that. If anyone has a different opinion and you did your own test, post a comment down below, but that's the short answer. Now, if you want some detail into the test and the results, let's go into it. So for starters, I'll start with the DJI battery. I took the drone out in sports mode, and these are the flight times. The first flight, 20 minutes and 8 seconds. Second flight, 20 minutes 24, 21 minutes 12. Now we'll go to the aftermarket battery flying in sports mode, and I get 22 minutes 44, a little extra, 21:48, 20:39. So with the first DJI battery in sports mode, if I divide all those free flights, the average was 20 minutes 35. What was the average of the aftermarket battery free flights in sports mode? 21 minutes 43. So what's that? That's like an extra, 1 minute and 12 seconds, is it? So the aftermarket battery got minutely better performance. What is that? That's like 6% or something. So that could be anything. That's not necessarily the battery. That could just be one of the flights that had a little bit of wind. Let's continue on. After I did the free flights with each of the 2 different batteries, I thought, hey, what the hell? This video is taking a while. Let's do the whole thing again in normal mode. Because if you fly in normal, of course you don't go as fast, maybe like 33 kilometers an hour. If you fly in sports mode, I think it's around an average of 56 kilometers an hour. So you think, oh yeah, I'm going to go further and I'm going to get more distance, of course, but it's going to use up the battery quicker and get less time. And you think about the headwinds. If I'm in normal mode, maybe I won't move at all sometimes because I'll be stuck in the headwind. Well, let's find out what flight times it got if I go in normal mode and distances. I was very surprised. So in a nutshell again, normal compared to sport mode gives you about a third, 33% extra flight time. So the 22 minutes turns into 33. Let's go through the list now. So with the DJI battery, sports mode got the average of 20 minutes 35, bear in mind. Normal mode, the free flights were 33 minutes 38, 28 minutes 55. That was a bit windy that time. That was the only time I ever took the drones out where there was a bit of wind, so you can see the time's been cut down. 31 minutes 16. That's a total of 1 hour, 33 minutes, 48 seconds, an average flight time of 31 minutes and 16 seconds. Now go to the aftermarket battery, all that again. 33 and 5 seconds, 30 minutes 10, windy, because that was the same day, as I mentioned before. 31 minutes 38, total 1 hour 34 53, and an average of 31 37. So the aftermarket in battery in normal mode, flight mode, got 31 37, and the DJI battery got 31 16. So again, nearly exactly the same. Again, the aftermarket battery won minutely, but that could be from anything. Maybe the aftermarket battery was manufactured 8 months before the DJI battery that I purchased was manufactured. Maybe the battery had already begun to lose some of its life, who knows? Or maybe it was just the wind. And if I did the whole test again, maybe the results would be the opposite. So that's it, I'll end the video there. I'm very happy with the results. I think they turned out much more accurate than I thought I would be able to do. I did allow for a lot of things, so I'm proud of myself with that. If this video has been helpful to you, could you please reward me with clicking on that like button and maybe even subscribing to my YouTube channel? And if you think that you've got different results and you did a test like this and you think you had better methods or you got better results, feel free to post a link to your own video below with a comment. And a last very interesting fact I'll give you before I go. I also was curious, like, what is the total distance that the drones covered? Did the distance vary even though they stayed in air for a different amount of time? And no, again, pretty much exactly the same results. I think my record was 17.8 kilometers with an average of about 16.5 kilometers in each flight. And the flight that got the most by a minute margin was done in normal mode with the aftermarket battery. So if my video helped you, please do me a big favor, click on that like button and maybe even subscribe to my hobby channel. Hope to see you guys next time. Bye.
Action time, the greatest hero of them all.
Hope you enjoyed. If you want to see another one of my drone videos, click on the link on the left.